All right. Well, welcome to today's masterclass, the 5-way of thinking. When we did our research for the learning and development and capability framework, one of the things that kept coming up was that we needed to have more business smarts. And Luke's session today is going to be touching on that. And it's really important that we understand and gain insights into either our company or organization or our clients about their business, about their goals, their customers, and their operations. So the more we get to know about the organization, the more we can make sure that our L&D strategies, our initiatives add value, they're relative, and all of those sorts of things, and most of all adds value. So I'm going to hand over to our host and COO, Bill Gerard, who'll introduce Luke for you this afternoon. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Carrie, and welcome everyone. Just before I start, could I just do my usual introduction and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're all sitting on today, and pay our respects, or my respects, to the elders past, present, and emerging. So we have a session. As Carrie mentioned, one of the things ILP is doing these days is trying to focus on what our members really need. And so it's about advancing your career, it's about building your business, it's about understanding how to grow your offering and things like that. So this session is very much around that business smarts capability that we talk about in the framework, as well as this whole idea of building business acumen. So whether you're running your own business or you're in a business, it's about understanding it. And so the session is going to be a little bit about, or a lot about, fit and how do you understand it. And I was fascinated when I was talking to Luke about this, about the 5-way thinking, about how businesses often only work on one part or one or two parts of their business. And I know from my perspective, running MindWorks, that has been the case. You know, I knew what I was good at and I knew what I wasn't good at, and how do you actually manage those things. So I think this is going to be a terrific session. And so I'm just going to turn it straight over to Luke. Luke is one of our advocates up in Queensland, and he runs his own company, which you know about in the blurb that I put together. So Luke, I'll turn it over to you, and I'll monitor the chat box for you. And Luke will be sharing some slides. So one of the things I always recommend is that when he's sharing his slides, you move into a speaker view, side-by-side speaker view, because then you get a chance to see the speaker in a larger box than you do with the slides. So you don't just get that little top corner things. When you're not, when Luke's maybe speaking, maybe put yourselves on mute so that we don't get sort of mixed messages in the recordings. And as you all know, we are being recorded. So Luke, I'll turn it over to you. If everyone else can just go mute for a moment, that would be great. Thank you.
Excellent, beauty. Thanks very much for that, Bill. Yeah, guys, hi, thank you for having me this afternoon. This session, as Bill said, the business acumen, there's probably a few different levels to the actual program. Originally, when I put it together, it was designed for frontline employees to help them understand a bit more about their business. But then, you know, speaking to Bill and Kerry, we sort of thought about how this concept could fit to facilitators and learning and development consultants. And really, you can take this program probably two different ways. One, for your own business, like Bill said, think about your own business and your understanding of your own consultancy or organization that you work for. But secondly, if you are a consultant or a facilitator, think about how you can actually use this to add value to your clients. And that's probably the way I'm going to lead with in this session. So I've adapted a little bit, thinking that people watching this will be facilitators or consultants. So what I'm going to share with you is a whole bunch of ways of thinking about your client and ways that you can add value to that client relationship. So what I'll do is I'm just going to start sharing my screen, and I'm going to, I've got a presentation for you, and it's broken down into 5 areas. And as we go, after each of the 5 elements, we'll stop for a bit, and I'll give you some time to to jot down any notes or ask questions as we go. Yeah, please use the comment box or just throw out questions. Bill and Kerry will help me just sort of pick it up if I don't see it. But yeah, feel free just to throw questions as we get along. Okay, bear with me while I just bring the screen. Okay, you got that there, Bill? Yep. Okay, everyone can still see me? Yep, cool. Okay, so learning objective, pretty simple for this afternoon's masterclass. It's how can you increase your business acumen to allow you to add more value with your clients? That's really what I was sort of hoping to get out of our time together. I'm going to give you a range of things to think about, to consider for your business acumen, and I'd like you to think about how can you work on that to add value from a client's perspective. I guess depends on how you're looking at this afternoon, but if you are coming to it from a learning and development consultant perspective, some of the benefits of thinking about business acumen and building your business acumen is one, absolutely that you can add value and add more value to your clients. But another really interesting part of developing your business acumen is this concept of joining the dots. And what I mean by that is sometimes it's really handy to have, if you're a facilitator and you're in the middle of a workshop, have someone, being yourself, that can actually join the dots across the conversations in your workshop and help people realize that, you know, what they're doing might impact another part of the business, and decisions that are made in other parts of the business have a flow-on effect to somewhere else. And so I call it joining the dots, and it's really useful. One, I guess, if you've got the business acumen, that you can understand that there is a flow-on effect, but two, to be able to explain that to the people in your room so they realize the world is bigger than them and their immediate to-do list. You know, we used to talk about breaking down silos, and I think having a wider grasp of business acumen is really good for breaking down silos, because you realize that there's other elements of the business that have to be absolutely, you know, working effectively and efficiently in order to get good outcomes. The third point just down the bottom there is about improving your credibility. And with that, you often see or you hear people talking about things like, you know, I'm going into this client and I'm a bit nervous because, you know, they're all experts in this and I'm an expert in something else. And I think as facilitators or consultants, you've got to realize you don't have to be the technical expert or the subject matter expert, but what you are the expert at is, you know, is facilitating or mediating or you know, joining dots and you know, applying certain types of thinking. You hear concepts like imposter syndrome, where people think, oh, I shouldn't be there. Personally, I think by boosting your business acumen, you realize that what you're bringing to the table isn't the technical side of their business, but it's the ability to have a conversation about what it means, who it affects, what else, who else should be involved, what else should we consider. So you bring more of almost like a mediation or you know, a thought-provoking or consideration element to the workplace. And I think I guess when I've sort of built this model, I talk about improving credibility. I think it just gives you more to talk about and gives you, you know, there's someone in the room who's considering all these other elements. Probably just on that as well, I think as a facilitator, and this is certainly from my own perspective, in a lot of workshops, you can find, especially with, you know, say new supervisors or junior frontline leaders, sometimes they can start having some, you know, so going down a bit of a negative path about the business or things they don't like or elements that aren't working or changes they don't like, and it can spiral into a little bit of a whinge festival, for want of a more polite term. And I think with a bit of business acumen, you can be the person in the room that lifts their head up above that conversation and says, hey guys, you know, have you thought about this? Have you considered that? And sometimes, whilst it's easy to get in the whinge, it can be really hard to get out of it. And so you do need the facilitator to, you know, to sort of pull the crew back up again and get people thinking about why certain things have happened, rather than just whinging or complaining about it. What I wanted to do is just give you a couple of examples of that from my own perspective to help you, I guess, sort of draw the picture in your head. One example I had, it was a couple of years ago. I had an operations team in there, and they were complaining about the marketing spend, and they were talking about the marketing spend year on year increasing. And that, you know, most recently they'd done a marketing and put on a really big function for, you know, something like 100 VIP customers. And I don't know, the budget was, you know, fairly high compared to what the ops guys were, you know, what they thought was right. And I thought, oh, I feel like you're only hearing or talking about one side of the story. So I got the ops team to work out of the VIPs that were at this marketing function, I got them to work out their value. And when we started playing with some numbers, it was interesting that one VIP was the value to the business was the equivalent of 100 new customers. And I thought, you know, now let's have a chat about the investment in these guys. And it was really interesting seeing people's brains change a little bit when they start understanding the bigger picture. Just to give you another quick one as well. Had a client where it was front of house staff complaining about hours being cut. You know, pretty standard. You know, we're doing cost cutting exercises, and they really couldn't get their head around why anyone in a business would decide to cut frontline services and cutting hours, and they're really getting upset about it. And it was pretty interesting because I knew the exec team quite well, and I knew that they were having some real troubles with cash flow. And I pushed back to these guys and I said, hey, you know, obviously no one likes having costs cut. You know, so do you think the exec team like making those calls? And they're like, oh yeah, they probably do. And I said, oh, what's the alternative? And they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, we're a listed company. I said, if we don't hit our cash flow, our cash forecast and our sales forecast, we've gone out to the market and we've told them that. What happens in a listed company if you don't hit your market? And they're all sort of sitting there scratching their heads. And I'm certainly not a financial expert, but I do know that you have to, if you're not going to hit your numbers, you have to declare a profit downgrade and tell your shareholders that, and that's got massive ramifications in the market. And so I just sort of threw that back into the mix, and it was really interesting then when people suddenly sort of scratch their heads and go, oh, okay, maybe there is a reason for this. And I guess part of what I'm going to try and do in this program today, in this afternoon together, is just join a few of those dots for you, or give you some tools to help join those dots next time you are in a situation where, you know, people maybe know one side of the story but don't know the other side of the story. So hope that sounds okay. Cool. Okay, so when I say one side of the story and then the other side of the story, I've actually broken the story into 5 pieces, and hence the idea of 5-way thinking. And so from a facilitator's perspective, I've broken it this way because I feel that there's 5 different elements that all businesses have to have to balance. And I think as a facilitator, if you can, you don't have to be an expert in each of the areas, but you certainly need to realize that they're very real in your client's organization. And someone in the organization, or someone in your training room, being you, needs to be one who can actually join these dots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through each of these 5 elements, and I'll just share with you. And these are all from my own experience as well, guys. These are just me trying to collate my notes as to what are some of the common conversations we've had over the years, and where have there been gaps, and where have people sort of been one way or not the other. And I've just tried to sort of, you know, lay it all out. So by all means, in your own businesses, you might have 6 ways or 7 ways of thinking. But at least, yeah, start with these 5, and then and hopefully as we go through, you'll see, they're quite easy and useful to have a conversation around. Does that seem okay? Cool. Nods, thumbs up. Perfect. Okay. Before I get too far in, I did want to just give you the opportunity that as we go, if you've got a particular client that you're working on, I will stop for a couple of breaks as we go. And if you've got a particular client you'd like to just have a practice with this afternoon, get a piece of paper or your notepads or any funky tech that you've got happening, and I'll throw a few questions your way as we go. And if you like, see what you can answer for your client. Obviously, the name of the game isn't to be able to answer everything today, but it's to at least consider, and then maybe go and chase up some of the questions that I'm going to throw your way. So I'll give you about 10 seconds of thinking time to think of a client that you think this might be useful for. Cool. Okay, so the first of the 5 ways of thinking is strategic alignment, and I think with any client you work for, this is probably number 1 to to really start to invest some time into. Strategic alignment, what I mean by that is understanding where the client's going, understanding what they're trying to achieve, so that really you should be able to connect any of your learning topics or any of your consulting areas into what their overall plan is all about. The little triangle on the left is probably the easiest tool, but one of the most valuable tools I've ever played with as a facilitator. You can use it in a number of different ways, but it's about trying to understand the connection and the flow of strategy through the business. I think with your clients, if you can understand what their vision is, and sometimes clients have these written up on their on their executive offices, on their websites, or you might have to even just speak to one of your key contacts and say, what's the vision? Where are we headed? That really should set the tone for everything else that happens in any of your programs. Some of your clients might also be talking about, purpose. They use that now as well. Good old Simon Sinek has had, finding your why. And so your why and your purpose and your vision, they're all pretty closely related, but they give you a real sense as to what the company or what your client, is setting out to try and achieve. I think values is another really important piece of the story. Understand what their values are. It's always fun in a workshop, almost any workshop, to ask, who knows what the values are? Who knows our values? And then, if you're ever sort of looking to sort of fill in 5-10 minutes, it's pretty fun getting everyone to work that out and work together, try and work out what the values are. But I think that's important. I think you need to understand their values. I think when you're adding value as a facilitator or as a consultant, I think you absolutely have the right at any point in any conversation to ask the question, and how does this align to our values? Or how does this stand up against values? Or so where are the expectations for your teams against values? And I'm a big fan of if the client has gone to the effort of building values and trying to cement them into the business, then part of your role in adding value is making sure that's part of your conversation and that you're comfortable about having that conversation. The last point in the triangle there is about the goals. This, I guess, can be sort of as big or as small as you'd like to make it. But if you've got your head around some of let's go up the chain. First of all, some of the big ticket goals that your client is striving to achieve, this helps you then in your conversations and your topics to say, right, how does this align to this particular goal? Or, why is this going to connect here? Or how does that connect to this particular goal? Does it or doesn't it? Or how is this going to impact that goal? I think if, as a facilitator, or as a learning consultant, if there's any way you can speak to your clients about their strategic priorities, I think that's absolute gold for you, because you can then understand what's driving the behavior at the exec level. What are they worried about? What are they worried about in the next 3 months or the next 6 months? And if we know what their concerns are, then in our learning solutions or any of our facilitated work, we can be saying, okay, right, we know this is a priority, so let's focus on this, or helping people work out, well, how are you contributing to this priority? And I think when I talked about credibility before, I think talking in terms of their priorities or their strategy or their goals absolutely gives you credibility and gives you the right to be speaking in that in that workshop. I think goals as well, you can take it down to the individual level, and I think it's very clever in a workshop if you understand or have an idea about some of what people's KPIs are or their shared goals or common goals. You can then really tailor your training to the what's in it for me. You can say to someone, hey, listen, we know you're being measured on improvements or efficiencies or turnover or whatever it might be. Let's talk about how this specifically impacts that personal goal. So again, I think the more information you have, the more confident you should be to bring those up and use them. I've also talked about risks in there as well. I think risks are really important for you. If you understand strategy, understand the risks that your company might be exposed to, and this can include things like market share. It can be international pandemics. brand reputation, health and safety, industrial relations. But let's think about risks and help people understand that part of their roles is managing and governing risks on behalf of the organisation. And so I think you should feel comfortable to say these risks are real, and there wouldn't be many people in your workshops who don't have some level of involvement or impact in risk, from a frontline worker all the way through to an executive team. I think as well, we've just on risks. I think it's very easy for people in your workshops to think, oh no, this is someone else. This is only the exec team need to worry about that. I think as part of your business acumen, you should drag it down to an individual level. And I use the term pop their bubble and let them know, no, mate, this is you as well. Yeah, you're on here. You know, you're either contributing to this or you're potentially presenting a risk factor yourself. So what side of the risk equation do you want to be on? And I think as a facilitator, a little bit of research or even talking to some of your stakeholders, you could easily get, you know, top 5 risks that organisation would be concerned about. Okay, on this is the end of topic number 1. And so what I wanted to do is just give you a couple of minutes on that activity at the bottom there. If you wanted to just take a few minutes to map out for one of your clients, if you knew their vision, values, goals, and any of their risks, feel free to do some dot points or write down a few question marks of questions you could go and ask. At the same time, please feel free to jump on and throw some questions here. We'll take a couple of minutes for this.
And if everybody has any questions, you can put them into the chat room or chat box area, or Luke, are you okay to take people and let them speak to you?
Yeah.
So if you want to take yourself off mute while we're doing some of these things, please go ahead and do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Luke, the client that I was thinking of was the National Library of Australia. So it's, you know, public enterprise and so on. I don't really know what their values are, but I'm sure I could look them up. But their risks at the moment are stability of their workforce, because they've just had a great big reshuffle, and they're possibly staff turnover. Certainly the disgruntlement that you're talking about before is imminent. And of course, they're not, you know, well, they're in Canberra, so they're not as affected by COVID as others are, but of course they're, you know, the doors are shut during COVID. So, you know, there's some pretty big risks. Plus, they've also in libraries, there's an aging workforce. The average age probably is around about 45, 50. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So what are they thinking about for the future? You know, what are what's plan B? What happens next? Have they migrated to digital? You know, what's your succession plan? There's a heap of stuff to, you know, sort of bring them in and sort of get them thinking at a higher level. So some of those can be a real challenge because they've been stable and secure for so long.
Exactly. And they're very used to that.
Yeah.
And also for many of the staff, working at the National Library is the pinnacle of your career. You know, there's no higher place to go. So, you know, if they're going to leave, it's always going to be a backward step.
Yeah, yep. Absolutely. You know, and then from an individual's perspective as well, it's like, what's your CV look like? You know, what are you to leave or something size? What's your plan B, and how ready are you for that plan B?
Exactly. Many of them have very specialized skills that don't exist anywhere else but the National Library. Yeah.
Yep.
Neil's put a question or some information in there. I might just read it out. His client is an RTO whose target market has been 100% international students. Borders are closed and the pool of students nationally are shrinking each day. 4 campuses in 4 capitals, Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney. I know I've done a lot of work over the years lecturing, not with them, but they've been lecturing my programs. A lot of these, I guess they're an RTO, but they have Nepalese students, they have Chinese students, they have Iranian students, and they're focused specifically on that. It's almost 100%. And so they'd be particularly here in Melbourne, would be in a dire straits, and they wouldn't probably have predicted any of those risks.
No, very, very hard to predict that. But and then it's all cash flow, isn't it? It's about, right, how long can we survive, unless, or do we get another stream of income? You know, what's our plan B? What's our plan C? Or what's our exit strategy?
Yeah, one of the organizations that we partnered with in times past is Academy XI, which had their campuses both in Sydney and in Melbourne. I talked to Marina just the other day, and they've switched everything to fully online now and have shut the campuses down. So very fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Some big decisions, like tough decisions, but that's have to be made, don't they? You know, and you lose staff as well, no doubt. But if for the business to survive, if it doesn't have cash, then that's a real reality check. It's pretty tough. I think having the online component as well, that's, you know, it might have been, you know, you think of your SWOT analysis, previously online might have been, you know, low, whereas now you ramp that up and go, right, we need to turn that into a strength in order for us to keep playing in the market.
Exactly.
Cool. All right. Can I jump on to the next? You guys are right. There's no other questions. I'll jump on to number 2. Beauty. Okay. Customer insights. You'll probably start to feel that there's a little bit of overlap in this thinking as well, which is good, because once you see the overlap, you see how they all join together. But this topic about business acumen around the customer, I think is really, really important as well, because I think in every organization, everybody is somehow connected to a customer. And, you know, I know we talk customer service, but really at the end of the day, if you don't have a customer on the other end of your product, then you've got a business that doesn't need you there. And I think with your customer service acumen, what you really want to try and do is you want to try and get, you know, as a facilitator, you need to try and understand for your clients, you know, who are their customers, you know, what do they need, and how well is this client meeting all those needs? From an internal perspective, it's really interesting as a facilitator to gauge how well people are actually connected to the customer. You know, there will be organizations where everyone believes you know, the customer is so important and they've got really high customer service mentality. But then you'll have other organizations where people have never seen a customer. They work behind the scenes and they don't know what a customer is. They think a customer is someone who has you know, unrealistic demands. And then as a facilitator, it's a really interesting job then to try and help people understand, you know, that a customer is the only reason you have a job and that you're getting paid is because of a customer. And so being able to be, you know, brave enough to have some of those conversations and connect the dots around how important customers are, but also more importantly, how important your role is to deliver to those customers. And I think that's a you know, a really interesting framework for a facilitator to work with. And so, you know, some of the I guess some of the tips and tools that I can give you to help you build this for yourself is, you know, with your clients, think about who their target market is. You know, who are they doing business with? You know, what do their clients look like? You know, are they business clients? Are they individual consumers? Are they mums and dads? Are they small businesses, large businesses? Are they government? Who are their clients? And the reason as a facilitator, it's good for you to get your head around their target market is because you want to be in the know as to what their target market's doing. Who are they? What are they doing? Are trends changing? Are people doing different things now? And therefore, are you staying relevant and current with your people that you're doing your workshops with and referring to those changes? Are you referring to the fact that you know, people are working from home more now, or that people are using online shopping, or that people are very comfortable now tapping their phones for purchases? So let's make sure we're talking sort of, you know, current trends, current you know, market activities with our guys. I think sometimes as well, you know, and I've worked with a lot of you know, mining, industrial, and it's really interesting when you know, sometimes they're great and they really get customer service. Other times they don't. They see the customer as just a pain who's stopping them from going home early on a Friday. And I found myself in those circumstances is you almost have to be the voice of the customer in the workshop. So be the voice of the customer. And what I mean by that, and where that links into business acumen, is being confident to ask people, so how does that impact on customer service? Or how will that impact on those touch points? Or what's the flow-on effect to these customers? Or will that make the customer want to come back and purchase again? Or, you know, how do we value add that for the customer? And I think sometimes we need to be the ones that will throw that customer mindset into the workplace, or into the workshop rather, and then get people thinking at it from another angle. An interesting question can be around asking people if they know the lifetime value of their customers. You know, what's a customer worth to you? You know, this, you know, lifetime value, you know, if you haven't sort of come across that as a topic before, is really a concept that says how much is this customer worth to the business over their whole period of life of working with a business. A good way to look at it is you and your local coffee shop. You might be a $5 a day coffee, which is, you know, you're a $25 a week customer, which over the course of, you know, the next 10 years that you live in that place and keep using that coffee shop, you know, you might be a $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 customer to that coffee shop. And if you think of someone as a $10,000 customer rather than as a $5 coffee purchase, it gives you a different frame to look at them and to put a value on that relationship and why it's so important to keep growing a relationship. Just give you just another example from a workshop I've done as well with of people not quite getting sort of customer service. Working with you know, I guess warehousing, and you've got your sort of your frontline picker packer you know, workers. We rolled out a whole new scanning system, and that, you know, there was a little bit of change management involved, and people didn't like the new scanners. They didn't like this, they didn't like that. As it was all rolling out, it was just another management control initiative. You know, and didn't sort of get why. And then what we ended up doing is we ended up having a conversation around the fact that this new scanner was going to reduce the error rate by something like 30 or 40%, which was huge, which when you translate that to the customer, it was something like, you know, something like 10, 20, 30% less customer complaints from having received wrong goods. And tried to have a conversation about the flow of that through the business. That if people are taking less calls here about problems, then that means they can be spending more time dealing with sales and solutions and value add, and how that impacts the business. So again, that it just takes a little bit of juggling in the thought of, you know, why is something happening? What's the flow and effect of that? The other big one probably to know, a lot of clients are using Net Promoter Score or some sort of customer engagement satisfaction score. If you've got a fairly good relationship with your client, ask them what that is. Ask them what their score is, and if they're allowed to share it, and ask them, you know, is there any reason you can't speak about it during the training programs? And ask people what drives their score. You know, whether it's a good score or a poor score. If it's changed over the last 6 to 12 months, be confident to have a conversation around that, and push that back into your workshops to say, well, what drives it? What part of your role helps drive this score? And it shouldn't matter if you're someone in IT or someone in the legal department or someone in accounts. There's something that you're doing that's somehow contributing to someone who's serving the customer. Yeah, that's about, I guess, all I've got on the customer side. The activity for this one is, again, pick your client and see what you can do to map out their target market. But then just another interesting one on the right there, talking about service delivery issues. Are there common issues that you've heard your client talk about that keep popping up time and time again? Just as a way of value add, I'm a bit of a fan of when you're doing your recaps and your debriefing with whoever your key client is just mentioning, hey, they mentioned this again. You know, is there something we could look at that, you know, whether it's a training solution or a, you know, consultation or a focus group to help address any of these service delivery issues? So I'll give you a couple of minutes there on that. And again, yeah, please jump off mute and throw some questions if you like around the customer side of things.
It's very interesting, Luke. One of the things that I found when I first started in the whole L&D game was I was doing a lot of training in continuous process improvement around those areas and understanding the customers of the customers. And we had the supplier, you had the customer, and you had you. And what we had to do, because mostly the people I was training were internal IT people across a very large organization, well away from any sort of customer at the front of the bank and things like that. But what we did is we had to show them how everything connects to everything else, and bring everybody, that everybody has a customer, everybody has a supplier. And if you're not familiar with that ecosystem, and putting the training into that concept and the work that you're doing into that concept, you would be missing a lot of things. Now we see about all this. It's interesting listening to Jennifer yesterday talking on one of her Geelong sustainability webinars, and they're doing actually a customer-centric design workshop in order to understand exactly who the customers are of sustainability and how they can fit. And of course, there's a whole raft of things. So really understanding those things, I think, is really important. But that customer of the customers is one of those things that I always thought was pretty important.
All right, just lost you a bit at the end there, Bill. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, we're okay. We
Yep.
can hear you.
Cool.
Yeah,
Sorry, mate.
talking about the customer of the customers, that's all.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like Neil's point with the an overseas market, that target market. Very unlikely they're going to be able to travel, anytime shortly. Do they have the ability to go online? Potentially. Other target markets that can be, that are similar enough that we can, divert our product over to. That's huge and must be a massive concern for that client.
I think that's right. And having done some work with some of these universities and schools like that, I think what happens is a lot of the ones that are looking at their students, they see the student as the customer rather than the country, for instance, or the people that actually do the promotions inside those organizations, inside those countries, to actually draw it out. So if you treat your students badly or your customers badly, they're going to go back, they're going to be dissatisfied, that's going to get around, and you're going to lose people over the long term. So a customer doesn't necessarily have to be the individual. It could be the cohort or the market itself that becomes your ideal customer, and you actually want to get referrals and loyalty and things like that going ahead as well. And I think universities probably don't always recognize that. Certainly some of the private providers, I think, miss that point with the way they treat their students.
Yep, absolutely. And another good one for your client, when we're talking about customers as well, is to use the word internal customer and the internal customer. A lot of companies are pretty comfortable with that these days, so you can use that. And again, this is another area where you can draw the line back to the values, and say, right, when you talk about some of the service delivery issues or the way people speak to other departments, you go, hey, that's not really in line with our values. You'd never speak to an external customer like that, so why would you speak to an internal customer like that? And I think this is, again, one of those areas where, you draw it back to, you got to keep joining the dots. What are your leadership expectations? What's a strategic priority? If we're saying it's all about, we're, innovative, and we do, great new things in the market. Okay, well, how are we doing that inside? And are you supporting the teams around you to be innovative and get things to market quickly? So again, join the dot back from priorities, your values, and here's our customer, and you're starting to make some linkages. Okay, what I'll do, I'll jump over now into the third one. So this one is about understanding the market and market intelligence. My business background before L&D was in the marketing, in the marketing space, and so I always loved this sort of stuff. And so I was very, very comfortable talking about it in any of my training programs. The truth is, none of this is tough concepts, but they're all very real concepts. And as a facilitator, I think we should get comfortable with understanding what's the market that our clients are playing in. There's on this particular slide, and for you guys, I've sort of talked about three areas. The brand proposition, some of you guys would have heard of that before, but the brand proposition is really an understanding about what is special about your client in the market. So what's unique about them? What makes them stand out from their competitors? It's a really, really, really important thing for you to get your head around. If anything, just so that you can make sure the people in your rooms know it. The marketing team might know it, the sales guys might know it because they might see it on brochures, But a lot of the time, guys in contact centers or IT or back of house or back office might not know what's so special or what you're trying to compete on in the marketplace. And the reason that's a problem is because if they don't know what your unique selling points are, they might not be supporting the business processes very well that are actually contributing to those unique. So like I said before, if one of the things you're trying to pride yourself on is having the latest, sort of technical solutions, if your design team is dragging the chain or your accounts team aren't paying their invoices on time and you're letting down your suppliers, that's going to impact your ability to be, to deliver technical solutions in the marketplace. So I'm a really big fan of making sure everybody understands what we're here to do, what we do and why we do it. I'm also a big fan of even just pop quizzes with guys to say, do you know your products? What products do we sell? What are the features and benefits of your products? I love doing that sort of stuff, and that's the nerdy marketer in me, because I just believe that, anywhere, if you're wearing a shirt that's got a logo on it, or you're at a barbecue and you meet someone and they ask, oh, what do? You should be able to answer that question. You don't just say, oh, I work in IT. You should be able to say, no, I work for this company and this is what we do. This is what our products are. You don't have to know the technical specs, but you at least I feel that you should know what you're actually, what you're selling. Probably moving on then from understanding your brand and what you're selling in the marketplace is also about understanding the competitors. And it can be really good for you guys to know a bit about the competitive landscape that your clients are finding themselves in. I think that it cues you in as to what's happening in the market, who's doing what. It also puts your guys on notice as well that you understand how hot the competitors are and what's coming at them. Sometimes your clients think they're great and think they're this, and then you might have to say, oh, what I noticed is that your competitor's also doing the same thing. Just throw it out there. Don't, I just think just challenge when, if people don't know themselves what the competitors are, then you can be someone in the room who at least can be confident in that conversation. I had a client up in North Queensland, and it was interesting. On a day of a workshop, I had to drive past 3 of their competitors to get to their office. And when I started this workshop, I gave them a quick overview of how neat and tidy and good looking all the competitors were. And it was like, oh, what? And it was more just to G them up a little bit. I was, in a very nice, polite way. And I'd bought the coffee, so I felt like I could have a quick dig at them. But it was just interesting to say, you're not, customers have to choose you. If I drove past 3 of your competitors, then probably, all your customers are driving past these competitors as well. So what's a really good reason that they drive past that competitor and pull up in your driveway? And I think that becomes really real. And often if you've got a small business owner in the workshop, they love that because it's real for them. It's like, yeah, we need people to drive past and park here. And, sometimes you've got to get your shop assistants and your frontline guys on board that realize that, there's a lot of effort to get someone to drive past a competitor and pull up in your car park and actually buy your product. And so for you as the facilitator, I think you should have the confidence to raise that and bring that up as a conversation. The last one there for you, what changes are disrupting the industry? This is a bit of a fun one, I suppose, for you to just try and do a bit of research yourself, a bit of desktop research in whatever industry they're in. Find out what industry news, what's current, who are the new players, who's got a new app that's going to turn this on its head, or what's happening. And I think it's good for you to know, and I think it's also puts you in a position of confidence to throw it out to your participants, to your learners, to say, hey guys, what are you doing about that? Or what are you thinking about this latest disruption? Or are you guys using Apple Pay yet? Funny little, just little things like that show that you understand what's happening in the market and show that your expectations for your workshop is that they understand it as well. And don't forget as well, we're not here to sell them a solution, but we're here to make sure that they're considering it as part of the conversation. I see this is important in business acumen because I see business acumen as understanding that a business is made up of all these moving parts. There's so many moving parts happening everywhere. And what we're trying to do is we're just trying to say, hey, don't forget this, or have you considered that? Or, there's a disruption over here. How's this likely to impact you guys over here? And just you're bringing those conversations to light. I think also with your understanding the competitive landscape, if any of you guys have ever sort of done any sort of marketing planning or business planning, you may have come across a really good acronym, the old Pest Analysis, or it's been upgraded to the Pestle Analysis. And I know I don't have it on the slide, but I just thought I'd share that with you as well, that if you are trying to research your client and their marketplace, Pestle stands for political, economical, social, technical, environmental, and legal. And what they do is they give you a bunch of really good headings to brainstorm things that are out there in the marketplace, which they can be opportunities. They can be really good for your client because there's changes that might make some good opportunities for them, or they could be threats. They could be problems about to occur. So Pestle, P-E-S-T-E-L. Quick Google, you can find that again, but that's a really neat tool for you to have up your sleeve so you know, but it's also a neat tool that you can actually throw into almost any course to say, hey guys, do we know what's going on around us? And are we prepared for it? Are our teams prepared for it? Is our productivity ready for it? Are our systems in place? And it definitely lifts the wider business acumen in your workshops. Another little tip I just wanted to share as well was if you don't already use them, but you can do Google alerts and news alerts for any of your clients, particularly if you've got a workshop that's going to be reoccurring, over a few months. You can set an alert so that you get any news articles about them, and that way there you show up to the training room, to the workshop, prepared for things that they're going to be talking about. Because chances are they probably know about it. There's been internal comms, but you might not have been cued in. So any news alerts can be really handy as well. And then you can start the conversation to say, hey guys, what's the feelings about this takeover, or what do we think about the share price, or what do we think about this office closing down? It just puts you in the conversation as someone who understands what's happening. All right, I think that's about it for me on topic 3. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes again to work through those 3 headings, and also please jump in with a comment or a question as well.
It's interesting hearing you talk about Pestle and other things like that. When I was doing my master's in entrepreneurship and innovation, all these things were key parts of putting our business plans together and things like that, and then reminding yourself about them as well. So it's highly, it's that asking questions that builds your acumen, I guess. So if you're not asking the questions, if you're not thinking this stuff through, then you're very quickly out of touch.
Agree. And I think you find as well, sometimes in our workplaces, your clients will be really busy being good at whatever their division or department is good at, and that's cool, but we just want to lift their heads up a little bit, particularly if any of you guys are doing leadership programs or high potential programs. Lift their heads up a little bit so they can see that there's other things happening around them that they need to be aware of, and things like Pestle are just a great way to start a conversation.
And I guess the other thing is, if you've worked with an organization that you're going to be doing some training for, and they've done some of that analysis, the question then could be, would they like you to build some of that, not the doing of it, but that awareness of it into the training that they're doing? Because often these things are done at a senior level, but it's not communicated down the line. And part of what I think L&D people can do is actually help to share the values, as you were saying before, but also share some of the challenges and the reason why.
Yep, absolutely.
If anybody else has anything, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and have a chat to Luke.
Yeah, I've got a implementing organizational change program coming up in the mental health field, and we've got the Pestle. Well, I've got the Pest Analysis in there. I might expand it to Pestle, but I think that's really important for these leaders, because they tend to get a bit insular and just think about what they're doing at the moment, and they need to be scouring the news and seeing what's on the horizon, so they don't get. I mean, they're never going to have global pandemic in their kit bag, but you can see things and changes happening, working from home and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah. And that is a good thing about doing those pest analysis as a group, is it brings together, it's brainstorming as well. And you know, you can get the group really talking about things that maybe they would never have considered before, or it doesn't even sit on my job description, but I can still contribute to it. Cool. All right. What I'll do on that note, we'll move over onto topic number 4, which is all about your operational knowledge, and then just to tap into what Adam was just talking about. You know, operational knowledge is about knowing what's going on. Do you know what's going on in with your client? And do your clients know what's going on within their own organisations? So operational knowledge is really about, do we understand the end-to-end processes? You don't need to know the depth of them as a facilitator, but you do need to know roughly how does their business come together? How does it flow? If I want to add value to you, I need to know the impacts, the cross flows. I need to know how your business works. Because if you're all talking about something, I'm going to ask questions to say, okay, so who touches that next, or who touches that before you get that? So, can I help you, figure out a path through this, or, can I ask you a few questions that you haven't asked yet, or other considerations? Just sorry, I'm back on Adam's point. Probably the key word here that I like to do is, as a facilitator, is collaboration. I think, maybe Adam, even in your program, continuous improvement or any operational planning, I think one of the absolutely understated benefits of corporate training in the modern era is collaboration. We're bringing together leaders or people, it doesn't even have to be leaders, people from across organizations, and putting them in a situation where they wouldn't normally sit with each other for some hours or a couple of days. And so the momentum for collaboration is so powerful, and the benefits are absolutely huge. We often talk in terms of learning outcomes and those sort of metrics, but I think the value of getting people together to collaborate and problem solve is absolutely huge. And if we can find a way of capturing that or measuring that and putting that back to the organisation, that's a very, very powerful benefit.
Well, in fact, Luke, just on that, the group I've got are going to be from 4 different mental health organisations. So it's an excellent opportunity for them to collaborate, and particularly on this pest analysis stuff. Yeah, they're all in the same field, and it's not a competition. It's not like Coles and IGA. Yeah. So great opportunity for them. Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic, and the energy that comes from that is huge. Yeah. Yeah. And your business acumen, in this is all about, well, I'm setting the stage for this, and I'm going to bring in things for you guys. But you've got the brain, that they've got the brains power. They've got the knowledge and the thoughts and the challenges and the issues, and you're just going to facilitate that and make that happen. I think it's very exciting. The more you work with clients, I think the more you do learn about how their operation fits together. I discovered probably a little bit later than I should have that it's a really good idea to write down notes whenever people start talking about the way a company flows, or things like bottlenecks or problems. At the end of the program, start writing those down, particularly if it's a client where you will come back and you will do a bit of work with them. You almost want to create a bit of a portfolio about what you know. Who are the managers in these areas? What sort of things do they do? What are they interested in? What do they keep, talking about or pushing? And that forms part of your conversation for the next time you get together with groups. You can share things like, oh, I know the sales guys are working on a new platform for this, and then, bring that up with the next group, and they go, yeah, they are. We haven't seen it yet, but we're looking forward to whatever. But the more you're in there showing that, yeah, I know this is happening, I know that's happening, or I know they've got problems here, how's that going? It's and a part of the process, and it's a really good way to add value, because sometimes no one else in the organization is doing that. Sometimes people just, we're all bad at communication in big companies, whereas if you're in a training room and the facilitator said, oh, hey, so that will also affect IT, won't it? And they go, oh yeah, it probably will. And then someone from IT suddenly wakes up and goes, what is it? Well then, okay, that's good, let's bring this conversation together. I think sometimes it's worthwhile just popping up breakouts if you need to, and having a breakout and saying, hey guys, we've just found out about this new system. Who's it going to affect? How's it going to trickle its way down to the customer service team? What's this going to look like? And then so what you're doing is you're helping your participants, your learners know this is how things flow together. Even though you're all in your little silos, there is some flow of this together. And as part of what I can do for you, if I can help you have that conversation before something goes wrong, then I feel like I've done a good job. You know, in the slide there, I've put down things like understanding business areas and their key deliverables. I think that's important because everyone in your workshops comes from a certain perspective. All your learners come there with their own agenda of what they're trying to achieve every day, what their own KPIs are and their own metrics. And the more you can understand the metrics and how they either work with each other in a company, or sometimes the metrics actually diverge, that's a good thing. And I think you can say, hey, okay, well, if you achieve this, how does that then affect these guys over here if they're putting on, putting this, and that's a good conversation to have. Don't shy away from that conversation. You know, the classic for any of you guys who've done, mining or engineering or industrial rather is, production versus maintenance. You know, production want the machines to be running all day, every day. Maintenance go, well, no, you're going to kill them. You know, we need the machines to be down. You know, you need to give these machines a break. You know, give me 24 hours to look at it. And production go, are you crazy? If we stop for 24 hours, you're not going to, we're not going to make any money. And you don't need to know the magical ratio, but you do need to be involved in that conversation if they're not, and bring people together and help people understand it from the other person's perspective. You can always do interesting little breakouts where you give them opposite roles and say, well, what would you do if you were the maintenance manager, or what would you do if you were the production manager? Normally, if you give someone the sales manager role, they just go out for lunch. So don't do that during a breakout. Just another interesting one as well on the organizational knowledge is I'd also say be confident and ask about staff engagement. Ask about engagement scores, or if they do like an internal net promoter for their employees. I think that's a big piece of the puzzle as well. Just to know, what's the engagement like, and maybe has it gone up, has it gone down? Is there any trends to be aware of? And what are the factors that are driving the engagement? And I think that's great for you to know as a facilitator in a workshop, so that you can then flag it as required. You can flag if the leaders are all complaining about, oh, we don't have enough training budget or something like that. You can say, oh, well, I did see on your engagement scores that, team members are reporting that they're feeling they're not growing, or they're not doing this, they're not doing that, and then in the next breath say, okay, so how do we address that? How can you address that as a leader? What can you do with no budget? What can you do if you don't have a budget, but you still need to address this? And so I think engagement is a very powerful metric to put in under this operational knowledge. It probably also helps when you are doing debriefs with your HR client or the L&D client at the end of a session or at the end of a program. You say, hey, these are some of the issues. I know engagement has already been flagged, and during the workshop we flagged this, and well. And then, you can then sort of say, this is what we talked about in the workshop, but here are some ideas, I think, to take this further, or maybe there's some other options that you need to consider with the guys, because this problem hasn't gone away and it's appeared on your last 5 engagement surveys. Just trying to think. Yeah, that's probably the biggest ticket items. We'll talk about budgets next. I didn't want to get into budgets while we're talking about operational knowledge too much. Deliverables is enough, but so probably take a minute or two to jot these down for your clients, or alternatively jump off mute and share a story or a question.
Again, I think some really terrific stuff there, Luke. And I know the number of times I've been in workshops with people from different departments, and they sit back and you get them to do something together, and they sit back and say, you're not telling me that that's what we do, that that's what happens. And they go, yeah, this is what it is. And I remember working with a resources company where that collection actually led to a significant change and improvement in what they were doing. So again, I think as L&D people, we want to create that and bring our own knowledge in. The other thing I can remember with some of the really big banks, sitting and talking to people about innovation, and say, well, did you know that Charlie over there is working on innovation in their department as well, in the same company? And they said, no, never even heard of them. So you're actually introducing people in the same company who are doing pretty much the same sorts of things in slightly different fields, but similar sort of things. So I think that's part of why we get to know people, and why understanding what the results are and what they're trying to change and things like that is so important.
Classic, because you're then adding value because you're the only person that knows both people are doing it. So you can then do the introduction.
Exactly.
Just another good one in when you're doing any sort of operational sort of planning or trying to build your knowledge is the old SWOT analysis. Adam, I'm not sure if you're going to do a SWOT with your pest. Probably they kind of go hand in hand, and they're both amazing tools. But a SWOT is a really good way to map out what we see as the strengths and weaknesses, and being brave enough to realize that some people may see a strength as a weakness or a weakness as a strength because of their perspective and how they see the business. And being confident enough to say, right, let's unpack this. Let's work out, is it really a strength or is it a weakness? Or is it sitting in both categories depending on what side of the business you're from? So the old SWOT, so the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats is another good one to write down. And that's it's a fabulous way to understand, the good points and the weak spots within your client.
Yeah, one of the things that I agree with that as well. And I think one of the things that I found in the past is a lot of organizations do their SWOT and then don't do anything with it, or don't do very much with it. So one of the tricks that I had before is, rather than your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat inside the 4 quadrants, I did them outside the quadrants, and then say, okay, so given this strength and this opportunity, what are our strategies? Given these weaknesses and these challenges, what kind of things? So what happens is that you actually are using the SWOT in order to develop strategies in each of the core quadrants. And that takes very good use of the SWOT analysis, in my view. I also did it with individuals. So as a young executive, my boss would actually get me to do that, and then I would say, okay, given this and given that, and would develop personal development strategies as well, which works really, really well.
Yeah. Thanks, Bill. I do pretty much the same thing, except strengths and weaknesses. I have strategies just for the weaknesses and strategies just for the threats. But it's a 3x2 column thing rather than 2x2 when I do it. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, such a good tool, because it opens up so many paths and can lead down some really good conversations and actions, like you said, and different ways of breaking out, like you said, Bill, as well, like saying, right, okay, so how do we address it? Given this, how do we? And you're almost removing the option of not addressing it.
Exactly. And I mean, the number of times, in the past where you're going along and somebody's doing a SWOT and they say, we did this last month or last 6 months ago, we never did anything with it. And so these tools become looked down upon or ignored because they haven't been done effectively.
Yep.
And part of our job is to do them, make sure we really understand them and do them effectively.
Yep, absolutely. And when you've got any leaders in there, if you're doing a leadership program, that's a great opportunity. You often say, oh, it's not me, it's someone else. Why don't we do that? You go, hey, step up. Let's drag this over to the above the line conversation. So if this isn't your responsibility, whose is it? Why are you passing the buck? How can you be involved? What can you do? All right, guys, we'll jump over into the last of the 5 ways, and this is around financial awareness. Often when we talk business acumen, the first thing that comes to mind is finances. Oh, do I need to understand the finances? The short answer is not to the same depth that your client needs to. That's for sure, but certainly you need to be confident to understand that all your clients need to have some sort of cash flow or funding in order to keep a business operating. What I've done for this section of the program is just broken finances down into 2 areas, and I've got that heading up there saying, how do finances drive behaviours? People have different connections to finances in the organisation, and it's up to us to try and figure out, do they know what they need to know, or if not, can we point them in the right direction? Anyway, back to you. So splitting this to micro to macro, the macro view of your client and getting to understand your client is understanding things like who owns your client, who does your client report into? You know, are they a private entity? Are they a government entity? Are they a not-for-profit? Are they owned by shareholders? What's their, you know, what's their ownership status, or what's their company operating status? And this is really interesting for you, just as a consultant, to understand, because the answer to that will give you a few insights as to what's important to them and what will be driving their behaviour as an organisation. You know, if they're a not-for-profit, they're going to be very strong around making sure that we use our money really wisely to deliver the promised services to our clients. They're going to be really strong, you know, they're going to be very strong, especially a lot around the health area. They're very passionate about their end clients, their end customers, and going, right, we want to do this amazing job. This is the money we've got to do it. You know, how can we make this happen? And they're very passionate about the end result. If you're a listed company and it's all about shareholders, then they're going to be focused on shareholder return. They are absolutely driven by making sure that they are remaining a viable company to enable shareholders to invest to keep the company going. And that's right. That's exactly what they should be focused on as well. But you want to know that. You need to know that. If they're a small mum and dad business, they're probably a bit of a mixed bag about, you know, first of all, I need to make sure we're surviving, and then ideally I'd like to grow. You know, can I pay my staff? Can I keep my people? Can I grow? What can we do? So by you just doing a bit of research to understand who owns the client, that helps you get in the frame of mind as to, well, what are they going to be most concerned about? There's a point there around share. If they are a listed company, it's always good just to see what's happened to their shares and be aware, you know, are they going up, going down? Why? You know, any good news, any bad news, anything of interest to note. I think it's important if they're newsworthy, and a bit like that point before when we said, you know, use your Google alerts, and you know, if there's a financial review article about them, be prepared, read that, and be prepared when you're in the workshop, reference it, ask the guys. Chances are some will have read it, some won't have read it. But at least you can be in the know. And if people start, you know, gossiping or getting concerned or worried, you can at least direct them then to say, hey, you know, this is obviously going to be an issue for your business. What I'd recommend is you go and speak to your, you know, your HR manager or your ops manager about that. So you can be aware there's an issue, and then you can be someone who can help signpost people in the right direction. You don't need to have an opinion or a comment on the issue, but you can at least signpost, and that's as good a job as you need as a facilitator. Just lastly there, just that last on the bottom left there, talking about their strategy. Do you understand their strategy? Is it acquisitions, cost saving, investment? I think this is just good for you to know that, hey, yeah, these guys do like this, or if it's a cost saving drive for the next 6 months, be aware of that and help the guys get their heads around it. They'll be no doubt talking about it in the workshop. So, you know, you can then talk and support and, you know, talk about why those strategies are really useful for helping companies, you know, get ready to sell or to make sure they hit their targets, or they might need to rationalize before they can grow again. In terms of the micro side, the micro is really interesting, and I think it's good to be aware of what financial metrics your learners are responsible for. And this might change from session to session, depending on who's in there, obviously, but getting a bit of an understanding about, you know, are these guys worried about budgets? Do they have a budget to worry about? Who drives their budget? What are the big ticket items that they're concerned about? Is it sales? You know, if they're all worried about sales, and you know the market's crashing, or Neil's point that, you know, we've had this pandemic and we're not getting sales from here, your conversations are going to be, you know, very strongly centered around those points that are really important and relevant to your learners. You know, so as part of your conversations, you know, ask the question. You don't have to know. Ask the question. You know, what are your metrics, guys? You know, they don't have to tell you the exact sales. No, there might be confidentiality. They don't need to tell you the sales numbers or their cost structures. But let's just at least understand what's going to keep them awake at night, or what they're going to be worried about. We see the sales guys sitting on their phones for you know, most of the day, looking at numbers coming in or chasing up clients and payments or accounts at the end of the day. And as a learner, you just have to recognize that's part, as a trainer, just recognize that's part of it. What reports do your learners complete each month? That's a really interesting one, because again, what are they worried about? What's going to drive their behavior? Are there conversations that you need to have with your teams, with the participants, sorry, to help them plan, help them think about, you know, back to your pest analysis, are there things that are coming that are going to affect them? Is there competitor information that's going to change their life, and are they aware of it? Bring back your employee engagement surveys and talk about if we've got really high attrition rates or poor staff turnover, how's that affecting their concepts we've already talked about as part of this back into, well, how does this hit your bottom line? And if it doesn't hit their bottom line, ask them, do they know how it hits their manager's bottom line or their head of department's bottom line? If they're not responsible for a budget themselves, they're certainly part of their manager's budget, and their manager will be concerned about it. Then the last point there is it's always good to know the budgeting process and how that's going to work at the organization, so that, again, you can join the dots for people and say, right, what are the big ticket items? You know, what are your plans? Do you have plans? What's going to happen in 3 months? Is this going to bounce back? Are things not bouncing back? So where are you looking, you know, for other options? Often in budgets as well, people are told to conserve, you know, save money, cost cutting, all the rest of it. You know, Bill talked before about, you know, continuous improvement. You know, what strategies have you got that are likely to either save money or increase revenue? So you're then attempting to bring these conversations together. That's probably all I think, you know, we need to go through in terms of the financial awareness. I'll give you a couple of minutes there just to look at both the macro side as well as the micro side. And then, obviously sing out if there's any questions that you or comments you want around this side of things as well.
I think this whole area, Luke, of being, you know, market intelligence, about understanding your clients and things like that. And I think you'd probably agree, the financial aspects in particular underlie just about everything an organization is going to be doing, because in some way, shape, or form, for the reasons you said. So having a basic understanding of that, and I think for larger organizations, it's not difficult to get some of that information, you know, the annual reports and things like that. And I know in the past, sitting back, talking to large organizations, I sit back and senior leaders would say to me, well, you know, I'll do that when it becomes important. And I said, have you read your latest annual report where the board says this?
Yes.
And they go, oh, yes, because, you know, a lot of the people we actually are relating to don't actually read their own annual reports.
No, you could at least do the executive summary. Have a go at it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree, and I think no matter what level you've got in your workshops, I think encouraging people to be interested in the numbers or be curious in the numbers is a very important learning you can give to somebody. Everything in every business somehow is connected to a number. You know, everything we do has a cost element to it, or you know, we're bringing in money or we're spending money, saving money. Everything's got a cost element to it, and we all have a value that we contribute to the business. And I've even said it to people before. I said, you know, do you add more value than what your business pays? You know, you're on 8, and not trying to say it in a negative way, but just trying to, let's rationalize it. If you're an employee on 120,000, do you deliver $120,000 worth of value to your manager, to your business?
Exactly right. One of the things that when I was doing my master's, one of the subjects we had 2 different finance subjects. And again, we're talking about entrepreneurship here. And while I don't know very much about the accounting processes themselves, I'm very good with numbers. And so I actually won top of class awards for both of those things for the year. And the reason for it was not the numbers, but what I could see in the numbers and how I would then take entrepreneurial action from those numbers. So the numbers tell you not just what's been happening, but what you should be doing. And if you do that, what the outcomes can be. And I think for any of us in small business in particular, but any size business, if you can get a model of, if we do this, then this will happen. And I can use those pictures to actually drive the story. I think finance spreadsheets and things like that are just some of the most important things we can use.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when someone's first starting out, just get them to look at trends. Are the numbers or variance? Are the numbers higher than what we predicted or lower? And you can have some really good conversations with people then to say, okay, so what's led to that? Why are the numbers lower than what we predicted? And that's great. Then that's, you then step back and let the conversations come forth. But you've had the nous to say, hey, we're higher than budget. Let's talk about why.
In the chat box there, Luke, you might want to just have a look at that. Yeah, I think Trump was one of those things that you couldn't have predicted.
Yes.
nor
Yes.
nor COVID.
No, absolutely.
Trump was.
Oh, sorry, who's that?
I said Trump was his own pandemic.
Yes. How do you predict that? You certainly can't predict it, but all you can do is react, isn't it? And and some markets are absolutely crushed for no fault of their own. Some were able to move online. Some just weren't able to do it. You look at some tourist operators. Even now, still trying to get back online. There's very little you can do in your business for that, but at the same time, you need to know that there's very little you can do and go and put your efforts in somewhere else where you can do something.
And of course, it changes again as well. I mean, I noticed in today's news that Biden has now suspended the approvals that Trump put in for place for oil research in Alaskan state lands. So if you could have fired everything up out there, and then suddenly a decision is made and it's reversed again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, what I'll do, guys, I'll just summarize. I'll bring it down to my last point. What I wanted to just, I guess, leave you with is just a couple of thoughts on how to make this real for you. And if there's any of these ideas you've looked at and you went, yeah, that's pretty good. I just wanted to leave some thoughts as to how to go ahead and do it. I really like talking to your clients and making time and space to show genuine interest and to find out about what they're doing, why they're doing things, and more often than not, if you've got an ongoing relationship, they're happy enough to share. Get to know the key stakeholders in the business as well. So get to know the people who are sending your learners to your workshops and find out what their priorities are, what they're looking for, what they're worried about. Know their names and then use their names in workshops. A really nice thing to do as well is invite some of those key stakeholders into your workshops and actually get them to share some of the things that are happening in their departments. Some of the most productive and effective programs I've ever been a part of is where the GMs from different departments have been willing to come in for 10 minutes and do a Q&A session with the guys. Share what's happening at a higher level in the business. And what you tend to find is that then brings everyone up a level, and it brings everyone up to going, yeah, okay, I know we're dealing in day-to-day tactical, but there's a strategic reason sitting here. And I think as well, if we ever get to have those opportunities with those, GMs or exec team coming and talking, ask questions. Be the person in the room that asks the questions, because often you'll find that the junior leaders are too nervous because they don't want to sound silly or they don't want to seem not to know. And so you can act like a bit of a mediator, and you can say, things like, so, hey, how would that affect these guys? Or what would you want these guys to do to support this initiative? So you can operate as a bit of a mediator rather than just a facilitator or a trainer. And then what that's doing as well is that's giving you information for your next workshop to say, hey, last time the exec spoke to the team and asked them to do this. I'm gonna cut out the middleman and tell you straight away, this is what you're going to be asked to do. So if you can, be comfortable in that space, be comfortable, talking and bringing execs or the HR manager in. Always take notes. Obviously, whenever you learn some business intel, write up your notes at the end of the day that you can then take into future conversations. Read their industry news. If it's a client that you really want to invest some time in or invest in and grow a great relationship, get to know what's happening in their industry and even be brave enough then to send them articles about what you've seen in the industry. flick them an article and say, hey, I've seen this latest product, or one of your competitors is doing this. Just thought I'd, you know, just flag it. You know, do you think it's something we should talk about next time we're in a workshop? The third point there, asking questions during sessions. I'm a big fan of asking your participants, oh guys, so who looks after that? Or how does that work? Or, you know, what happens here? Or when does that planning happen? I'm a big fan. You're allowed to ask questions of them as well. One, it tells you if they actually know it. And two, they share great insights, which you can then join the dots later on if no one else has. And you say, hey, remember, someone told us they were doing this. Let's bring that across here. And then lastly, you know, follow up with your client with issues and topics. Some of those really big meaty topics that come up that, you know, don't necessarily have a resolution, but you just can feel they're serious and they're significant to, you know, affecting your learners, or you can see they're about to affect your learners. And follow up with your client and say, hey, these things are emerging. Maybe there's already a link back to something the client's mentioned, but it might be linked to, you know, your net promoter score or your employee engagement, or the client's already flagged to you it's an issue. Come back to them and say, yeah, it did appear, and these were some of the things that were discussed. And then have an opinion or share some ideas with your client about, well, what could we do to address that in the future? Or maybe it's something the client needs to do offline before the next workshop. You know, anyway, what that does is it shows you as someone who cares about the client, but you've also understood there's issues, but you're also prepared to speak up about it as well and offer some assistance, not someone who just sort of gets in there and, you know, rolls out a session and flicks your invoice at the end of the day. Yeah, that's it from me. I think, yeah, I've tried to share a fair bit. Obviously, you've got my details are there. Please feel free to, yeah, sing out if there's parts of this that I've gone over too quickly, or you'd like to have a look at some of it in more detail, or some more ideas around any of the elements. Please feel free to get in contact. And I love talking about this sort of thing. So yeah, please reach out. But otherwise, yeah, that's it from me. And yeah, I'm keen to hang around and keep chatting for as long as you like.
All right, thank you, Luke. And can you just stop sharing your screen so we can get everybody back in the room of this talk? And I know when we were doing some things with clients over a long period of time, we got to know people, individuals, and you could just keep adding to the mind map as you got to hear about their family or what they studied or whatever it is. And so you built up a brilliant profile of your client and the individuals in them as well. So a terrific tool for doing that if you're really serious about it. So terrific. Luke, I know you said you'd like to hang around a little bit longer, but we're at this stage in time, we're due to finish. So we'll see if anybody wants to hang around. They're certainly happy to do that. But as I normally finish up, I just wanted to mention we've got the next two master classes pretty much scheduled right now. I'm almost certain that we'll have Vanessa Trower doing the next one, actually taking us through some of the work she actually does externally. And on July 1st, we've got Trevor Manning is coming in, and he's going to be talking about what he's done in critical conversations and how he gets technical people involved in what he's been doing. And I've got a few other ones ready to go as well. So we'll be publishing those hopefully in the next few days. And again, always invite people to come back. And thank you everybody for attending. If you want to hang around, please do so. If you've got time for a wine, well then off you go for that as well.
Top it up. Yeah.
All right. So long, everybody, and thank you again for doing this. I'm going to stop the recording now. Unless Carrie, we don't finish off with anything?
I just wanted to say, look, I think, Luke, you really highlighted the importance of business acumen and how, you know, it really will help people to add value to their clients. So I really appreciated that. And you and I had a conversation about a week ago over coffee about creating the Business Smarts for L&D Professionals checklist that I want to develop. So this has given me so much more ideas. So when Bill was talking about the chain of events, or the supply chain, ours is our members, and obviously theirs is their clients. So it has given me a lot of ideas for that. So I'll be in touch to talk about it. But I'm sure everybody here today got lots of value out of it. And as Bill said, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much, Luke, for your time for putting that session together.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right, everybody.
You can.
Fantastic. All right. Well, for me, that was just a fabulous session. I really enjoyed those things. Just one last shout out that I'll make about your note taking, which I agree with, but try using mind maps, right, Warren?
Mm.
Look, see, there's Warren's mind map of this talk. And I know when we were doing some things with clients over a long period of time, we got to know people, individuals, and you could just keep adding to the mind map as you got to hear about their family or what they studied or whatever it is. And so you built up a brilliant profile of your client and the individuals in them as well. So a terrific tool for doing that if you're really serious about it. So terrific. Luke, I know you said you'd like to hang around a little bit longer, but we're at this stage in time, we're due to finish. So we'll see if anybody wants to hang around. They're certainly happy to do that. But as I normally finish up, I just wanted to mention we've got the next 2 master classes pretty much scheduled right now. I'm almost certain that we'll have Vanessa Trower doing the next one, actually taking us through some of the work she actually does externally. And on July 1st, we've got Trevor Manning is coming in, and he's going to be talking about what he's done in critical conversations and how he gets technical people involved in what he's been doing. And I've got a few other ones ready to go as well. So we'll be publishing those hopefully in the next few days. And again, always invite people to come back. And thank you everybody for attending. If you want to hang around, please do so. If you've got time for a wine, well then off you go for that as well.
Top it up. Yeah.
All right, so long everybody, and thank you again for doing this. I'm going to stop the recording now. Unless Carrie, we don't finish off with anything?
I just wanted to say, look, I think, Luke, you really highlighted the importance of business acumen and how, it really will help people to add value to their clients. So I really appreciated that. And you and I had a conversation about a week ago over coffee about creating the Business Smarts for L&D Professionals checklist that I want to develop. So this has given me so much more ideas. So when Bill was talking about the chain of events or the supply chain, ours is our members and obviously theirs is their clients. So it has given me a lot of ideas for that. So I'll be in touch to talk about it. But I'm sure everybody here today got lots of value out of it. And as Bill said, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much, Luke, for your time for putting that session together.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right, everybody.